What if the person standing guard next to you forgot how to blink? What if the uniform they're wearing is the only thing keeping their skin from sliding off their bones? You're trained to spot a threat from a mile away, but your instincts never prepared you for a war where the enemy doesn't just want your land, it wants your face. Welcome to Shadowland, a place where darkness breathes and silence speaks. Tonight, we recount a classified nightmare from the deep ridges of the Appalachians. A story of a standard training op that turned into a desperate struggle against something that looks almost human, but is anything but stay until the end. If you want to know why some veterans never come back from the woods, even after they've returned home. It was 1994, deep in the thick brush of the Appalachian Trail, miles from the nearest paved road. We were a squad of 6, seasoned and cynical. The rain was a constant heavy curtain that turned the forest floor into a sludge of decaying leaves and mud. My second in command, Miller, was a guy from the Ohio suburbs, tough, reliable, the kind of man who'd give you his last ration without a word. But on the third night, Miller stopped talking. We were hunkered down in a limestone cave. Watching the tree line, I looked over at Miller. He was staring into the darkness, his eyes wide, unmoving. He hadn't blinked in 10 minutes. I whispered his name. No response. I reached out to touch his shoulder. And that's when I heard it. A sound like wet Velcro tearing, coming from inside his chest. Miller turned his head. Not just his head, but his whole neck twisted with a sickening wet crack. He looked at me, and his eyes, they weren't Miller's. There were 2 pits of oily blackness that seemed to swallow the light from our single flashlight. "It's cold, Captain," he said. But his mouth didn't move in sync with the words. It was like a poorly dubbed movie. I scrambled back, my hand fumbling for my sidearm. I screamed for the others, but the cave was silent. The rest of the squad was gone. Not dead, just gone. As if the shadows had simply reached out and erased them, I ran. I didn't care about the mission or the gear. I ran through the thorns and the mud, the branches clawing at my face like skeletal fingers. I found a ranger station 2 miles down the ridge. A small, sturdy building with a heavy bolt on the door. I locked myself in, gasping for air, clutching my chest. I sat there for 30 minutes. Watching the moon rise over the pines, I was safe. The station was government property, reinforced, secure. I checked the windows. Nothing but the swaying trees. I started to laugh. A shaky, hysterical sound. I was gonna make it. Then I heard a knock. Not on the door. On the floorboards, Captain. It was Miller's voice. It was coming from the crawl space directly beneath my boots. "You forgot your canteen. I have it right here. Just reach down and take it." I looked down, and through a knothole in the wood, I saw a single pale eye looking back up at me. It wasn't in the head. It was just there. in the dark. I realized then that the war wasn't in the woods, it was already in the room. The safety of the station was just a bigger trap. If you want to survive the next night in Shadowland, make sure to subscribe and leave a light on in the comments. It helps us find you in the dark. Sleep well, if you're sure your shadow is still attached to your feet.